The Galactic Council expected fear. They delivered an ultimatum: surrender, obey, or burn. But Earth didn't kneel. Earth didn't answer. For 3 days they waited in silence. Then, 30 Terran dreadnoughts decloaked inside their core worlds. The message was clear: humanity doesn't negotiate. Humanity strikes back. The chamber hovered in silence. Not the respectful kind, no, this was arrogance wrapped in velvet. The great hall of the Galactic Council, carved from bronze-colored crystal mined from the dead moons of Elithar, hummed with self-importance. Around the grand star map table sat the high delegates of 23 ancient species. They were old, slow, powerful. They saw Earth as a rash infection, a species too quick to learn and far too stubborn to kneel. Ambassador General Callum Voss stood alone at the center. He wore a simple black coat with no medals, no stripes, just the Terran seal on his chest, an open hand over a shattered star. He did not bow. He did not blink. From the far side, Virex of the Varelians finally spoke. His voice slithered not through air but through minds. You will surrender all territory beyond the Cepheus expanse. Your military fleets will be reduced by 93%. All human education systems will adopt Council-approved doctrine within 3 cycles. And Earth will comply. Voss didn't flinch. His eyes, hard like forged iron, scanned the room once. 1 heartbeat. 2. And if we don't? The silence wasn't broken. It was shattered. Laughter rippled through the council, some amused, some offended, most simply bored. To them, humans were predictable. Violent, emotional, reactionary. The council had broken greater civilizations with less effort. You misunderstand, General, said Virex. This is not a request. It is a correction. Voss stepped forward, voice steady, unamused. You think we're a mistake. That we were supposed to stay primitive. That we weren't supposed to rise. Virex responded with cold finality. The stars are not yours. Voss stared directly at the Varelian. No. They're not. But neither are they yours. A flicker. A pulse. Voss pressed a button on his wristband and vanished in a flash of blue light. The star map darkened. One by one, systems began flickering red. Alarm glyphs pulsed across council displays. Entire sectors, gone dark. Relay stations unresponsive. Internal security AIs, offline. It took them a full minute to realize what had happened. Earth had already moved. On the other side of the galaxy, deep within the Titan ring of Terran-controlled space, Fleet Commander Rena Haas snapped her fingers. All units, execute Chimera Protocol. The command reverberated like a starting gun. 30 dreadnoughts emerged from folded space inside Council territory, completely undetected. Each bore the name of a Terran colony lost in the early Council conflicts: Tarkus, Helion, Dustfall, New Jakarta. And at the helm of the largest, Iron Requiem, Haas stood clad in obsidian armor, eyes lit with cold resolve. They didn't open fire. Not at first. Instead, Earth's fleet began jamming every known Council signal, broadcasting a single message across all frequencies in every language. You offered us chains. We answer in kind. The Council scrambled. Defensive fleets launched. Panic swept through inner systems as military AI nodes refused commands. Human cyber warfare divisions had already breached core systems before the Council even met. Entire planets watched helplessly as orbital shields fell, without a single shot fired. In the command deck of the Iron Requiem, an officer turned to Haas. They still haven't returned fire. Haas didn't smile. That's because they don't know what to shoot. She gestured to the navigation officer. Target their command towers on Varelian Prime. Surgical fire only. No civilian zones. Within seconds, kinetic rods, no warheads, just metal and momentum, fell from orbit. The city-sized crystalline towers that held the Council's neural links detonated like glass under a hammer. The planet was left intact. The message was not. Back at Council Central, Virex slammed a clawed hand against the console. How did this happen? A young delegate from the Kauthri species trembled as she read the data feed. They knew everything. Our fleet positions. Our AI codes. Even our diplomatic cipher sequences. How? They've been seeding us for decades. Our entertainment networks, their culture, their language, their music, it was a vector. They weren't exporting art. They were exporting infiltration. Virex stared at the chaos. They used their stories as weapons? On Earth, in a massive subterranean command center beneath the Andes, Voss watched a dozen holographic displays at once. Systems blinked into Terran control. Enemy ships were rerouted. Dozens of alien commanders were dead, most from friendly fire. One aide approached, visibly shaken. Sir, the Council's not just destabilized, they're disintegrating. Voss nodded. Good. Then let them see the truth through the cracks. Back on the Iron Requiem, Rena Haas received an urgent communication from one of the outer Terran patrols. A Council fleet had regrouped. 70 ships, en route to Terran border worlds. She tapped her comms. Prepare to intercept. Do not engage unless fired upon. Disable first. Then ask if they want to surrender. The fleet obeyed, but 5 minutes into the approach, the Council Armada opened fire. Missiles, plasma beams, swarm drones, all aimed directly at the Terran line. But they didn't hit. Not a single shot landed. The Terrans had already anticipated their targeting algorithms. Every warship shifted positions milliseconds before impact. Every round missed by design. And then, Earth ships vanished. The Council fleet found themselves surrounded. Without firing a shot, the Terrans projected into every Council ship's command deck, a hologram of Callum Voss, standing tall, hands behind his back. You brought war to our doorsteps a century ago. We didn't forget. We didn't forgive. We rebuilt. He leaned forward. Now we return the favor. But we will do what you never did. We'll give you a choice. He raised a hand. Surrender. Or vanish. 10 ships powered down. 10 more followed. The rest tried to fight. They didn't last 60 seconds. Back at the Council chambers, Virex watched, trembling, not with fear, but realization. They outplayed us. Another delegate muttered. No, they outgrew us. In the silence that followed, one transmission echoed across the stars, from Earth to all worlds. We are not your mistake. We are your consequence. The air inside Iron Requiem was sharp with tension. Commander Rena Haas paced along the command deck, silent but radiating purpose. Before her, the stars burned cold through the viewplate, 1,000 systems trembling beneath their light. Below those stars, 29 dreadnoughts waited in perfect formation. The Council hadn't even realized they were surrounded yet. All fleets in position, her comms officer reported. Awaiting authorization. Any change in Council chatter? She asked. Still scrambling. They think it's a system malfunction. Rena's lips twitched. Not a smile, just the barest hint of satisfaction. She turned toward the tactical map, watching red icons flicker, then disappear, one by one. Send the trigger command. Chimera Phase 2 begins now. A coded pulse leapt from the Iron Requiem and vanished into the dark. Across the galaxy, Council systems that had worked flawlessly for centuries began to collapse. Their orbitals went blind. Firewalls failed. AI cores stalled mid-calculation, overwritten by malware designed to sound like their own logic. Power grids fluctuated. Ships drifted out of formation. Entire defense fleets suddenly rerouted by false alerts they couldn't verify. At the Council's home system, the planetary defense shield deactivated without warning. 5 seconds later, a single kinetic lance from a Terran dreadnought pierced the Council's main orbital relay, clean, surgical, no casualties, except for the chain of command it severed instantly. They still hadn't fired back. Open transmission to the Council, Rena said. The screen lit with static, then focused. A dozen alien faces appeared, twisted by confusion and fear. You didn't listen, Rena said calmly. Now you'll feel. A Drassic warlord, skin pulsing red with rage, hissed, "You dare attack the Council without provocation? You gave us all the provocation we needed the moment you tried to leash our species like a beast. This is an act of madness." "No," Rena cut in, voice as hard as steel. "This is war. And you've already lost." She terminated the feed. "Deploy psychological operations. Let's make this loud." Moments later, every public screen on every Council world lit up. A montage played, Earth's colonists slaughtered by Council enforcers. Human prisoners experimented on by illusory scientists. Treaties ignored, ambassadors assassinated. Then the message. "You called us savage. You forgot we learned fast." It wasn't just vengeance, it was proof. Proof that the Terran Empire had endured humiliation and answered with patience, not panic. Now came the reckoning. Aboard a Council cruiser near the Thalos Rim, Admiral Kale watched in disbelief as his entire fleet stopped responding to his commands. The comms buzzed with static. Half his ships were already gone from sensors. The rest were still there, but under foreign control. He reached for his comms officer. "Where's our override code?" The officer's face was pale. "Sir, the override system's been reprogrammed." "By whom?" A pause. "Earth." It was the first time in 4 centuries a Council admiral knew what it meant to be helpless. Back aboard the Iron Requiem, reports flooded in. Council planetary governors were evacuating their capitals. Political factions turned on each other. Alien mercenary clans defected to the Terrans, offering safe passage in return for survival. Rena stood quietly, absorbing every detail. She didn't celebrate. She calculated. "Begin Phase 3, she said. "Direct strikes. Targets confirmed. Minimal force. Let them know we could have destroyed them." "Targets locked," her weapons officer replied. One by one, the dreadnoughts began precision bombardments. Orbital dry docks, war factories, military databanks. Not one civilian target was touched. It was violence with surgical intention. The message was unmistakable. Earth held the power, and Earth held the restraint. A panicked message from Council High Speaker Virex reached her ship. Rena took the call. "You must cease this immediately," the alien demanded. "This is an unlawful attack on a sovereign council." Rena didn't even look at the screen. "The council ceased to be sovereign when it declared humanity inferior and unworthy of self-determination. You're destabilizing galactic peace." She turned slowly. "Peace? You mean the leash? The bureaucracy? The forced compliance dressed up as diplomacy? You're making a mistake." "No. You made one. You assumed we'd always play by your rules." She ended the transmission. Elsewhere, Ambassador General Callum Voss sat aboard a smaller strike vessel drifting just outside the Council's capital system. He watched the chaos unfold from a distance, arms folded, mind sharp. The plan was working. But something still felt unfinished. An aide approached. "Sir, our deep signal intercept just confirmed. Jurassic swarm fleets have defected. They're pledging alliance to Earth. Not even demanding terms. Just asking not to be purged." Voss nodded slowly. "They've seen what's coming. We're being hailed by 4 neutral species requesting entry into Terran space. They say they're done with the Council. They're asking for protection." Voss leaned back. "Let them in." Back at Council Prime, fires burned in the sky. Rena's fleet hadn't touched the surface, yet the population had begun to riot. The idea of Earth, once laughable, now haunted them. Children whispered stories of Terran ghosts. Soldiers refused to fight shadows they couldn't hit. An emergency war council assembled in a bunker beneath the capital. Virex presided, flanked by the remnants of his delegation. One advisor spoke, trembling. "We never expected this." Virex was silent. Then, "They fight without hatred. That's what frightens me most." Another delegate whispered, "We should surrender." "Surrender?" Virex spat. "To apes that crawled from a gravity well barely a few millennia ago? To a species that dismantled our fleets in silence," came the reply. They didn't scream. They didn't roar. They just acted. And we weren't ready. Find a way to disable their neural code penetration, Virex ordered. If we can sever their logic chains. Their logic chains are human, the scientist muttered. They don't use singular protocols. Their system adapts every second. They've made chaos a weapon. In orbit, the Terran fleet held position. Not pressing. Not retreating. Waiting. Inside Iron Requiem, Rena received a report. The Council is requesting a ceasefire. She stared at the message. Have they offered terms? Not yet. They just said they're ready to talk. She raised a brow. Then make them listen. She recorded one line and sent it across every open channel. You offered us extinction. Now we offer you mercy. You get one chance. Then she turned to her crew. If they don't take it, we finish the job. The Council's inner sanctum no longer echoed with authority. Its grand columns, once humming with prestige, now trembled with unease. Virex stood in the center, eyes twitching as fresh reports scrolled across the central projection. Another border world had fallen. Not to fire or siege, but to surrender. Terran fleets didn't conquer. They arrived, disabled weapons without firing, broadcast a single offer, and watched entire systems bend. Not out of fear, but relief. They're not behaving like conquerors, murmured a Zalari delegate. They dismantle our control, then leave the door open. That's what makes it worse. Someone else added. They don't need to rule us. They already changed us. Virex slammed a claw into the table. They've broken the chain of command. Cracked the cultural binders. We must regain narrative dominance. Broadcast counter-propaganda. A trembling aide stammered. It won't matter. Their cultural infection's deeper than we calculated. Our youth follow their music. Their vids. Their humor. They quote their generals like prophets. Virex turned away from the projection, teeth grinding. Then we escalate. Initiate UN 9. Burn the infection at the root. The chamber stilled. Even the most militant delegates flinched. UN 9 was a legacy protocol, buried beneath ethics and forgotten treaties. A black hole seed. A planet killer. A sin disguised as a contingency. We swore we'd never use it, whispered a Varn diplomat. They left us no choice. Virex growled. Earth must be erased. Across space, aboard a silent orbital near the decaying moon of Jenny's, Callum Voss stared at the intercepted broadcast. He didn't blink. His fingers tapped slowly against the table. One beat. Then two. UN 9, he said quietly. So they're still that arrogant. A young officer across from him leaned forward. Should we mobilize the heavy fleet? Voss shook his head. They're lighting a match inside a leaking fuel cell. No. We let them try. The officer hesitated. You mean, let them fire? They'll try. But they won't succeed. UN 9's already dead. Confusion flickered across the officer's face. Voss exhaled slowly. We designed it. Silence. You what? Voss's voice was calm. 60 years ago, during their war with the Velari, they contracted human engineers to design fail-safe containment for their cosmic deterrent. Thought we were naive enough to be flattered. We built them a bomb with a backdoor. One signal disables it. Another redirects it. The officer leaned back, stunned. They've built their doomsday weapon on a Terran fuse. Voss stood. Send the code. Let them watch their apocalypse fold in on itself. Elsewhere, deep beneath the crust of a barren planet orbiting a red dwarf, the UN 9 device stirred. Systems activated. Engines roared to embryonic life. Gravitic stabilizers flickered awake. Its final target, Earth. But just before the launch sequence completed, the device stalled. Not an explosion. Not a system failure. It simply stopped. Inside the council chamber, Virex stared at the override screen. His clawed fingers hovered over the activation key. Why won't it fire? He growled. It's not responding, a technician said, bewildered. The command chain is intact, but the core logic won't obey. It's rerouting? Rerouting where? The projection shifted. The target was no longer Sol. It was the Council's own star. Impossible, someone breathed. Then a message appeared, printed in sharp Terran script across every Council monitor. You built your own destruction. We just handed you the mirror. Panic erupted. Some delegates fled. Others stood frozen, watching helplessly as EON-9 calculated a new trajectory, one that would collapse the heart of their own empire. Voss watched from orbit impassive. No need to fire, he said. On cue, the device powered down. Deactivated. Folded into stasis like a dormant beast. The point was made. Broadcast to all Council species, Voss ordered. Every world. Every channel. A technician opened the comms. Voss stepped forward and spoke with crisp precision. You offered Earth annihilation. You were willing to destroy a planet full of civilians because you feared we would not bow. And now the galaxy sees you for what you are. He let the words hang, sharp and exact. You built an empire on obedience. On fear. You ruled by removing choice, and called it peace. But we've shown your people that they have a choice. And most of them are taking it. He paused, letting silence add weight. We don't want to rule you. We don't want your stars. But we will never kneel. Not again. You tried to end us. Instead, you ended your own illusion. He stepped back. The broadcast ended. On a dozen worlds, Council statues were torn down, not by Terrans, but by the Council's own citizens. Protests turned to revolutions. Military garrisons laid down arms. Council authority collapsed without a single Terran boot touching the ground. Inside Iron Requiem, Commander Haas reviewed the updates. The Virelian spires have declared independence. The Illusory homeworld just opened trade talks. Even the Drassic High Brood wants diplomatic contact. She turned to her advisor. How much territory have we actually taken? He flipped through digital reports. None. Just systems we disabled then left. They surrendered before occupation. Haas folded her arms. Good. We're not building an empire. We're burning theirs. In the ruins of the council chamber, Virex sat slumped against a pillar, eyes hollow. They never even invaded, he muttered. The chamber echoed with quiet irony. They didn't have to, came a voice. It was the young Zalari delegate, eyes wide with wonder. They didn't fight for control. They fought for proof. And they won. Virex closed his eyes, too tired to deny it. Somewhere beyond the edge of known space, in a Terran outpost orbiting a dying sun, Voss reviewed a final communique from Earth's assembly. It authorized full withdrawal. All Terran fleets were to return home. A young officer beside him blinked. That's it. We're done? We were done the moment they saw their own reflection and recoiled. Voss replied. We didn't fight for territory. We fought for the story. And what story is that? That Earth was never weak. Just underestimated. And now, unforgettable. The delegation from the surviving council states arrived in battered ships, their hulls scorched, their formations sloppy. What once had flown in arrogance now limped forward in resignation. Their arrival at the neutral system of Kepler-9 was not broadcast with pride, but with silence. It was not a diplomatic visit. It was a plea. Callum Voss stood on the observation deck of the Verdict, a Terran diplomatic cruiser orbiting the platform. He didn't turn to greet them when their ships began to dock. He simply watched the stars, hands clasped, posture calm. The silence had become his weapon as much as Earth's technology. Behind him, Commander Haas approached, data slate in hand. They sent 37 delegates, she said, not hiding her disdain. 5 of them are the same species who pushed for the ultimatum. Voss didn't move. Let them speak. You think they'll admit what they did? They don't have to, Voss said. They only need to listen. The Council's temporary chamber aboard the platform was cold and without adornment. No banners. No hierarchy. Just a circular table. Equal distance for every chair. Terran philosophy made manifest. Virex was among them, though thinner now, his skin dulled, his voice lacking the psychic dominance it once carried. His first words were cautious. "We are here to end this conflict." Voss sat opposite him, flanked by no guards, unarmed. He didn't blink. "There is no conflict," Voss said. "There is aftermath." The delegates exchanged glances, uneasy. Virex leaned forward. "Then let us negotiate the terms of peace." "There are no terms," Voss said. "Not the kind you're used to. We don't want your territory. We don't want compensation. We want understanding. And accountability." A Zalari delegate, young and more hopeful, tried to speak with optimism. "Surely we can agree to reforms. Shared administration. Cultural exchange." Voss raised a hand. "Stop." The room fell quiet again. "You don't understand. We're not here to rebuild your empire with new colors and different chairs. We're here to bury it." The table went still. Haas entered behind Voss, silent but ever present. Voss continued, "You enslaved, silenced, erased civilizations for thousands of years, all while calling yourselves arbiters of peace. You disguised domination as order. But the truth is, you feared change more than war." An Illusorai delegate, draped in fading ceremonial robes, dared to protest. "We maintained balance." "You maintained obedience," Voss interrupted. "And now it's gone." One of the older Varnans slammed his fist. "What do you want from us? Humiliation? Punishment?" Voss met his eyes. "No. We want evolution. But if you can't change, extinction will come on its own. Not by our hand, but by your failure to adapt." The words struck deep. No demands. No threats. Just a mirror. Virex lowered his gaze. "Then what role do we have in this new order you've carved?" Voss didn't answer immediately. He let the weight of the silence linger. "You have a choice. Step down from the throne you no longer hold. Rejoin the stars as equals, not rulers. Or isolate and rot behind crumbling fleets and false pride." The Zalari delegate swallowed hard. "And if we accept? Then Earth will offer you what you never gave us. A place. Not under us. Beside us." The room remained still. No one applauded. No one objected. For the first time in remembered history, the council had nothing left to argue. Later that night, Voss stood alone again, this time in his quarters aboard the Verdict. Haas entered, her face unreadable. "You think they'll take the offer?" "Enough of them will," Voss replied. "Enough to make the old guard irrelevant." Haas walked to the viewport. "You could have demanded their surrender. Put Terran flags on every council world. Named yourself first emperor. They'd have had no choice." "That's why we didn't," Voss said. "We don't need to rule what's already broken. We just needed them to see it." She watched him a moment, then gave a quiet nod. "Broadcasts ready?" He turned to face her. "Send it." Across hundreds of systems, a final message from Earth echoed. "To the free worlds of the galaxy, we are not conquerors. We are not gods. We are not saviors. We are what you feared, what you tried to destroy, what you underestimated. We are human. And we are done apologizing for it." It ended there. No anthem. No threats. Just that. On dozens of council worlds, statues were taken down. Not by Earth, but by the young. Songs from Earth played in crowded marketplaces. Former prisoners of council justice walked free. Flags changed. So did languages. So did alliances. And not a single Terran warship lingered. The council was dead. Not by war. Not by politics. But by revelation. The myth had collapsed. The lie had rotted through. Earth had simply shown them what they were, and refused to play their game. In the silence that followed, one fact remained unspoken but understood. They would never forget what humanity had done. And they would never look at Earth the same way again. The quiet that followed wasn't peace. It was recalibration. Every species that had once knelt to the Council now stared into a void left by its collapse, wondering what would come next. No new throne rose in its place. No banners. No edicts. Earth had burned the old order and walked away from the ashes. Callum Voss sat at the head of a long, unadorned table within Earth's orbital command hub. A room once filled with chatter and strategy was now nearly empty. A few aides sifted through incoming transmissions, most of them requests for trade, diplomacy, or security pacts. It hadn't even been a week. Across from him sat a representative from the Kothari Confederacy, one of the few council factions that had neither fought nor surrendered. Neutral until the end, now uncertain of their future. "You're not claiming the territories," the representative said slowly. "You're not imposing governors or installing puppet regimes." Voss folded his hands. "We didn't fight for control. We fought to end theirs. But power abhors a vacuum." Voss studied him. "Then fill it. Not with empire. With responsibility." The Kothari leaned forward. "And what does Earth want?" "Stability. Autonomy. A galaxy where no one decides another's fate based on ancestry, origin, or fleet size." A pause lingered. Then, "And if someone tries to build another council?" Voss didn't blink. "Then we come back." Elsewhere, Commander Rena Haas stood before a group of Terran cadets in training, men and women who hadn't seen war but would inherit the peace. The briefing room was dark, a projection of old council records floating above them, files on psychological suppression protocols, planetary sanctions, the erasure of native languages across colony worlds. "Never forget what they did," she said. "Not because we want vengeance, but because we need memory. The moment you forget why we fought, you become what we fought." A cadet raised his hand. "If they didn't surrender outright, why didn't we press further?" "Because power without purpose becomes rot," Haas replied. "We could have owned their stars. But we chose to free them instead. That's our legacy. Not conquest. Restraint." On the third ring of Saturn, within the quiet Terran observatory constructed after the war's conclusion, a communication technician intercepted a coded signal. It wasn't military or political. It was a transmission from a planet previously classified as hostile. The technician hesitated, then routed it upward. It reached Voss within the hour. The message was brief. A species once loyal to the Council, one of the harshest enforcers of Council rule, was asking for aid. Famine. Infrastructure collapse. They had no allies. And yet they asked Earth. Voss didn't hesitate. "Send supplies." Quietly. "No flags." An aide looked surprised. "Even after." "They were tools," Voss cut in. "Now they're people again. And people get help." Within days, Earth's humanitarian fleets crossed old enemy lines. No demands. No terms. Just relief. The message traveled faster than light. Earth forgives faster than it forgets. In a broadcast watched across the galaxy, Earth's assembly issued a statement. No pomp. No ceremony. Just truth. "To those who once called us savages, know this. We are brutal when provoked, but we do not seek dominance. We seek freedom. For ourselves. For you. For all. If you wish to rebuild, we will help you. If you wish to stand apart, we'll respect it. But if you ever raise a council like the last one, know this, we will return. Not as conquerors. As consequence." The feed ended. Not with applause. But with reflection. On a council world stripped of rank and regime, a child watched the broadcast and turned to her father. "Are they really that strong?" Her father looked at her, uncertain. "They're strong enough to leave after they win. That's what scares me." Back in orbit, Voss received a private signal, an encrypted, ancient channel reserved for the assembly. Only a few had access. It bore no sender ID. The voice on the line was synthetic calm. "Your mission is complete." Voss didn't react. "The Council is gone. Chaos has balance. You were not meant to rule, merely to dismantle." Are you prepared for deactivation? He exhaled, slowly. I made choices. Human choices. You fulfilled protocol. Directive 9, execute disruption, install autonomy. And now what? He asked quietly. Do I vanish? Erase myself like a weapon that served its purpose? Silence. Then, you are allowed to remain. For as long as you remember who you are. The line went dead. He sat back. Not entirely sure if he'd just spoken to Earth's hidden AI consortium, or a remnant of a black project long buried. It didn't matter. He knew what mattered. The door opened behind him. Haas stepped in, arms crossed. Your name's being written into every textbook from here to Orion. You'll be a myth by next year. I'm not interested in myths. No, she said. But you just killed one. Voss stood, stretched his back, and looked down at Earth below. Still blue. Still beautiful. Unbowed. What happens now? She asked. He smiled faintly. We stop watching the stars for threats. And start watching them for friends. She nodded. We're not the Hammer anymore, she said. No, he agreed. Now we're the Forge. And as the galaxy turned, it did so knowing that humanity, flawed, fiery, fearless, had rewritten the future not through domination, but through something more dangerous. Choice.